this is a really bad loss, and I feel like it's the culmination of, of a 5-week period that I think has made the program take a significant step backwards. I mean, it's not – you don't have to go that far back to remember when we were 5-0, right? We beat Florida. You go 5-0, and you get ready to play Georgia and lose to Georgia, but you could come away from that game, and I was one of the people who did come away from the game like this, going, well, yeah, we lost, and we lost by a lot, but Georgia's starting to turn it on, and they have turned it on, really, since our game. I mean, they have been awesome. Have blown most teams out except Missouri. And, you say, well, there were a couple plays here and there. Maybe it would have been closer. I didn't really put much into it. And then Mark Stoops on his show on Monday made the comment that he thought if the fans wanted more, they should pony up. And I remember when I heard it, like, really being shocked by it because it seemed so unlike him to say something like that. It seemed to me, in my interactions and relationships with him, just not the kind of thing that he would say in public. Because losing to Georgia really doesn't have a whole lot nobody's beaten Georgia in 3 years. So losing to Georgia is not an embarrassment. And so I thought it was a really, really odd reaction in that moment. And a lot of fans were frustrated about it. I was frustrated about it. But I said at the time, look, you play Missouri next week. If you win, going into the bye, it's not going to matter. And then, of course, they lost that game, and it's not been the same since. I mean, it's not. They did win Mississippi State, but lose a close one against Tennessee, embarrassed against Alabama. But tonight, to me, is the low point of the season. And, I don't know. I think along with the Vandy home game last year, probably the low point of Stoops' tenure. Because even though it's on the road, even though it's a night game, even though it's at South Carolina, they're not good. And you lost a game that you should have won. And the reason the pony up comments frustrated me was because, okay, maybe you need to pony up to beat Georgia, but they got enough talent to beat South Carolina. They got enough talent to beat Tennessee at home, and they got enough talent to beat Missouri at home. And you've lost all 3 of those games. Those are three games that if you win those 3 games, it's a different year, right? Like you're 9-2 and you're having the year that Missouri's having. Instead, it's 6-5, and there are people, and I don't know if I'm there yet, but I don't think their point is ridiculous. Jeff Drummond said it feels like a turning point and an end of an era in the Stoops tenure. I'm not at the end of an era part yet, but I'm not far from a turning point. This is a bad loss, and it's a bad loss that we can point to a million little things. But this is just a football team that has had an undeserved arrogance the last 2 years. And it is culminating in another program that, in my opinion, has an undeserved arrogance, South Carolina, beating you for the second year in a row. I mean, the 2 programs in the last 2 years who probably talked the most and won the least, if we're honest, are us and them. And they've beaten us twice. So that's embarrassing. It just is. And we lost this game in every way you could. Self-inflicted penalties at terrible times. Turnovers, and not just turnovers, terrible decision turnovers. Devin Leary's interception in the first half was just an awful, awful interception. It's 10-7. It's right before halftime. You'd love to score a touchdown, but if you get a field goal, you're tied, and you got all the momentum, and then you throw an interception. They go down, they score. It's 14-10. The Dane Key fumble. I know he got stripped from behind, but, man, you cannot fumble that ball. It's 14-10. You're at the 40-yard line. You're going. If you get 3 points, then there's no way. At worst, you're tied. Fumble the ball. And then at the end, it's first down, midfield. Got plenty of time. Hold the ball too long, get hit from behind, fumble/interception. 3 terrible turnovers that you just can't have in those situations. And then you have a defense that how many times tonight was it 3rd and long? They oddly were – I'd rather it be 3rd and 2 than 3rd and 12 with this team. 2nd and 27, and you let them go 17 yards and then a touchdown on the next play. The secondary was brutal. We got no pressure on the quarterback for most of the game. There were little periods that we did. I don't understand a lot of Liam Cohen's play calls. I don't understand. It ended up they still got this first down, but on 2nd and 2, you throw the ball 5 yards behind you throw it 5 yards behind the line of scrimmage with a quarterback that has just checked in the game as a backup. I don't understand that play call. It ends up costing us 7 yards. There were just so many examples, and how many times are we going to go deep and miss it? It's frustrating. And we can, like I said, we can pick all of that out individually. But overall, it feels like a program that's at a turning point. And I worry about it. You look at some of the comments after the game, fan frustration, especially on a night game. I expect that. But you had multiple players, families tweeting about it. In this transfer portal era, you're one bad ending from losing half your team. Momentum is key in college football. Next year, Kentucky's schedule's a lot harder. You're replacing Missouri and Mississippi, or you're replacing Missouri with Auburn and Texas. And I don't know. It's hard to feel a sense of confidence going into this year. And I go back to the pony up comment, not because, look, people can make mistakes. People can say things they shouldn't say. I don't know that Stoops ever apologized for that. But I do think it was symbolic of what we've seen all year. There has been an arrogance around this program. I've always liked the confidence this program had. One of the things about Stoops is that he has instilled a confidence. These kids do not think that Kentucky needs to be second or at times, as we've been in the past, 3rd tier. Confidence is good. Chip on your shoulder is good. But I think it's gone into an arrogance this year. There's almost like we did something. And, I think a couple years Stoops has been here, we have done something. And I think he's been very good for most of his career. But last year we went 6-7. And is that right? 6-7, 7-6. Either way, not the year we thought we were going to have. And now this year, looks like it's going to be 6-6, and you're going to play in a zombie bowl game that I'm not sure any of our fans are going to care about. And, well, I say 6-6. We could beat Louisville. I think if we win tonight, we do beat Louisville. Now it's hard to feel confident about Louisville. And it doesn't help that they're 11-1, or 10-1, and it doesn't help that Missouri is having the year you wanted to have. It just feels like a turning point. And, I've been over the last decade a huge proponent and a huge advocate for Mark Stoops. And just like I said during Calipari's struggles in the last couple of years, I still think calls that we need to replace him, just like I said about Cal. I think they're dumb. We live in a society where people say it's either you love them or you hate them. You can't be in the middle. And for 3 years, I've tried to be in a situation with Cal where I was kind of very critical, but still didn't think he should be replaced. Well, I've been pretty positive and optimistic about Stoops, even through the struggles through this year. And I still think he is, should and will get another year. I mean, I think conversations about replacing him are a waste of time. I mean, I'm sure somebody will say that tonight and will make that claim, but it's a waste of time. But I do think for really the first time in his career this year, he deserves criticism, and some pretty significant criticism. You could sort of, say about last year, well, Scangarello didn't really work. Levis was hurt. I mean, I said a lot of that stuff. But there's no excuses for this year. You got the quarterback you wanted. You got the running back you wanted. You have a ton of talent at receiver, and through NIL, you paid for that talent, right? Like, you got that talent here. You have an improved, if not great, offensive line. On paper, on defense, you got everything you need. And you bomb. I mean, this year, unless they somehow beat Louisville, is a bomb. 6-6 with this group is a bomb. It just is. You're going to finish the year, if you lose to Louisville, having beaten no team with a winning record. Considering what you brought in, it's a bomb. And you have to accept criticism for that. And a lot of it was self-inflicted. And I go back to the arrogance thing for a minute. You know, that pony up comment was arrogance. It's not me. Y'all get better players. And what if you're in the locker room when they say that? Well, I guess they need to upgrade me. I go back to something that on paper is stupid, but is an example of what I'm saying. We hire a new special teams coach. He comes in here. He hadn't done anything. First thing he does is tweet out, we don't want any Australian. Our punter is Australian, and he's criticizing Australian punters when our punter is Australian, and our former Ray Guy winner is Australian, and he's talking about how they're not going to do Australian punting. And guess what? The special teams gets infinitely worse. It was already bad, and it gets worse when you get here. That's arrogance. And there's been too much of it. And I think you're seeing it in the field. Players, after you lose, ready to fight, penalties that are undisciplined, and you end up losing a game against a South Carolina team that is not good. That team is not good. They have one guy, Spencer Rattler, two guys, then their receiver, and you let those guys beat you. So it does feel like a little bit of a turning point. I'm not going to go to the place where people go and say, just like I said with Cal, I'm not going to the place they should be replaced. I think that's dumb. And even if you wanted to do it, you don't have $56 million to pay for the buyout, so we're not doing it. But I do think there's got to be a serious evaluation as to what you do going forward. And you don't want to bring up basketball on the football show. You don't want to bring up football on the basketball show. But I will do it because of what happened 2 years ago with the whole football-basketball school thing. Calipari was at this moment during the offseason, in my opinion. I thought he was playing an outdated style of basketball. He had a team that didn't get along. He was stressing them out. The recruiting had slipped. All those things happened. And you know what he did? To his credit, that has worked so far. He brought in coaches who would change things. They changed their playing style. They upped their recruiting. Now, will it pay off? We'll have to see. But they did after a long time. We're not taking long twos anymore. After a long time of doing things one way, they changed it. All right. With Stoops, I don't think there's a stubbornness. I think they've grown arrogant. And it's time to take a step back and look at how you built this thing. You built this thing on the big blue wall. You built it on running the ball. Then you threw in Liam Cohen, and you had unique play calls. You built it on guys on defense, staying in their lanes, making plays, finishing tackles. And somehow all of that has gone away. We're throwing deep bombs that never connect. We're handing the number one running back in the portal the ball 12 times, and he makes amazing plays, and we don't reward him. Guys are getting tackles broken. They're making stupid plays. And we're telling our fans to pony up. That's not what gave Mark Stoops success. He is going away from what it was that made him so successful. And it will be time in this offseason to reevaluate. If we lose to Louisville, we're going to play a bowl game no one's going to care about. And we're going to spend most of the offseason trying to keep this team together in some form. This will be the most important couple of months after this season that Stoops has had since he got here. And it'll be up to him, in my opinion, to go back to what made him successful.